There you go. That's the record button.
All right. Damn.
We've already shared fucking 15 minutes of stories here, but
I thought my crow's feet and veto stories were going to make the pod.
Well, never say never. It's not too late. So welcome to the clown show. But we are back with another episode of the Bold Take, and we are joined by the esteemed Associated Press, just absolute journalist maven, Mark Long. And so as we introduce Mark, we wanted to just kind of preface everything with, I think we had a course that was charted for this episode up until about 26 hours ago. And so we called an audible, and as we did that, we changed guests and we asked Mark to come on kind of last minute and just really talk about the current dysfunction and just the overall dysfunction is probably what we're going to get into this evening.
Wait. You don't want to discuss the legendary staff that Billy Napier is putting together?
I was talking Dan Mullen. Is this not the Gator podcast? I thought that we were
we can do both.
Or is this Mike White? Is this basketball? What are we doing here?
That's my guy. So don't be careful. Tread lightly.
None of us care enough to talk about him.
We're not talking about him.
We're not going to bag on him. But no, in all reality, we said, when it comes to having the tough conversations, asking the tough questions, there's really one main person on the beat that we appreciate who does that. And I think a lot of our listeners do as well. So Mark, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. The clown show is kind of what I've been covering for the last 18 years in Jacksonville. So this fits right in.
Especially the last 8.
Yeah, okay.
For those
last 8, more like the last 15, but go ahead.
No. I was going to say, give us kind of the total. You have been for the Associated Press covering the Jags and the Gators for how long?
2004. Well, so I went to the University of Florida from 95 to 99, graduated from UF Journalism School. And I was in the Air Force, went to school from 95 to 99, got out of the Air Force, GI Bill, went to University of Florida on the GI Bill, 95 to 99, graduated from 99, got my first job with AP right out of college in 1999 down in Miami, and covering the Hurricanes down there from 99, 2000, 01, 02, 03, part of 04. And I came up in the middle of the season 04. And my big claim to fame is I went from 95 to 99. The Gators didn't lose at home. So I went entire college, didn't see a home loss. I go down to Miami basically took over in the 2000 season, 99, and they didn't lose at home 2000, 01, 02, and then they lost in 04, I think it was, to Tennessee. So I have on a pretty unbelievable streak of home games where you didn't see that team lose. And then you come up here and, you get stuck with this shit show covering the Gators with the McElwain era and the Muschamp era and even the Ron Zook era, and certainly all the eras of the Jags. So a pretty good run, though, right out of college to be with AP. Now I've been with AP over 20 years, 22 years, I guess it is, 99. Yeah, 22 years all with AP in only 2 spots. And, in Miami and now back in Gainesville. And so I live in Gainesville, but I cover the Jags. It's a lot of traveling over 18 seasons now. It's a lot of 301, man, a lot of Stark.
Oh,
I got the bypass, but it's still brutal. Sorry. I get to December and I'm like totally checked out. It's like, I can't even make that. I don't even want to make that drive anymore. Just to talk to somebody who's, running a 2-12 team or whatever it is.
You're borderline spending enough time there. You could be mayor of Stark. You're going through there.
Lottie. I'll take Lottie.
Lottie. Yeah. I was going to say Lottie or any of those fine,
I think I got a ticket
cities.
In like all of them.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Waldo, Lottie, Stark. Yeah.
That was my question, is like how many tickets you've gotten over those 18 years.
It's ridiculous. What was the little town? Maybe you guys know it pretty well, I guess. But what was the little town where they got busted for having they just had a speed trap, and that's all it was. And it was the one between Waldo and Stark. And they just had it was 2 cops, and basically they rotated 8-hour shifts, and all they did was write tickets. Yeah. Boom, 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 boom. That's it. Yeah. So they busted them, And now they don't even have a police station anymore. Waller doesn't have police. That place doesn't have police. Stark's down to like 2 cars, and Lottie's still got the one guy in the same spot. He's been there all 18 years.
So there, you have it right there from the mayor of Stark, folks, Mark Long. He's saying speed right through those areas.
Yeah.
You're good. Hey, listen, if you get a ticket though, send it to one TIA Bank Field and care of Shad Khan.
Yeah, right.
Mark, you've seen so starting, you said 04 basically here.
04, yeah.
04. Where does right now rank in the pantheon of ineptitude that we've seen over the last 18 years?
It's bad. It's the most dysfunction I've ever seen. And that's, you're talking about like some ridiculously dysfunctional years. Wayne Weaver didn't want to pay. He was so cheap. And I get it. He was on a budget and whatnot, but there was that year, it was Jack's last year, where everybody started bailing on Jack, and he's got, he promotes a quality control coach to his receivers coach. He's a completely lame duck staff. They're in the final year of their contract. Guys are wanting out. Guys are bitching. Jack doesn't even know. They draft a quarterback. They go and draft a quarterback while Jack's out of the room. That was some pretty elite level dysfunction. This tops that, and it's not even close. This is unbelievable. And we had, I think 2 years ago, 2 years ago, guys were pointing fingers. The personnel, the front office people were pointing fingers at the coaching staff. The coaching staff was put fingers at the front office people. They didn't give us any talent. Oh, there's plenty of talent. You guys aren't coaching them. And so there was some real discord inside the building. Then this tops that. It's not even close. It's unbelievable. And the worst part of this is I'm not really sure the ownership gets how bad it is. I just don't. That's my biggest problem here is Shad Khan doesn't have eyes and ears. Tony was those eyes and ears early on in the 12s, 13s, 14s, 15s. And I thought Tony did a really good job of at least knowing what was going on. And now I thought, in 2017, I really do believe that Shad Khan had the right idea in putting somebody at the top, somebody to be the eyes. He chose the wrong guy. Execution of it was so poor in Tom Coughlin, but there was the right idea. They needed somebody at the top who's going to report to Lamping and to Shad Khan, but somebody who knows football, is in the building every day, can tell you, here's what's working, here's not working. But the model they have right now, where the coach and the GM are equals essentially, but they both report to the owner, it's never going to work, because the second things start going wrong, they turn on each other. And it happened we saw it with Dave and Doug. We saw it with Dave and Doug. We saw it with Urban and Trent. And as long as that's the model, you're going to keep seeing the same thing. So that's the fundamental flaw here is, you have an owner who's not in the building. People are yes men, telling him what he wants to hear half the time. And finally, you get a guy like Trevor to step up and say, this is not going to work with this head coach. And I still believe, until somebody tells me otherwise, that Trevor getting on that yacht and telling Urban Meyer, it's not going to work. Telling Shad Khan it's not going to work with Urban Meyer was the impetus for him firing Urban Meyer. And so, he's our savior. He is, we've known he's our savior from a quarterback standpoint. I think he's our savior from a dysfunction standpoint, because he gets it and he's not afraid to stand up, raise his hand and say, this isn't working. We can do better.
So it's just, you think the biggest thing basically is that Khan, Khan has these people reporting to him and he has no clue who to believe, essentially.
Oh, sure. And you call up Trent Baalke. He doesn't. And the other thing is poor hiring. Yeah. Pick up the phone. Anybody in the NFL would have told you that Trent Baalke is a snake, that Trent Baalke's untrustworthy, that, Dave Caldwell would have told you that. Doug Marrone could have told you that. Anybody in the league, the 4 guys they fired who were on the staff for decades have stories of Trent Baalke. And they're all, and I think 3 of them are at the Senior Bowl. They all would have said the same thing, said, don't let that guy in the building. So Trent Baalke is, to me, as big a problem as Urban Meyer. And, Urban Meyer had his own issues. Doug Marrone had his own issues. Dave Caldwell had their own issues. But Trent Baalke here, you can't look at his track record. You can't look at his history and think that this is the guy we want fixing it. This is the guy I want to trust in this building. People in the building are outraged that he was retained. And so to me, the biggest thing is where are these people getting they need to get an audience with Shad. First off, you need an audience with Shad, and you need to be in a situation where you can tell him this is screwed up. And I just don't know if Shad's providing that audience for the guys who are willing to speak out. But I do know there are people willing to speak out, but they got to have the audience. And then Shad's got to believe it. And I just think it's also, as I said this on the radio, I've tweeted, I think he's a little bit of his path of least resistance. You know, you've got a guy in place who's done it, a guy, you know, and you're already in this window now where you got to interview people. And it's like, wait, you know, to do it right, you would have needed to fire Trent Baalke when you fired Urban Meyer, hired a GM in the last 2-3 weeks, and have that GM now in place to go do these coaching interviews. And it didn't happen like that. So, you know, there's almost no way to fix it at this point. You almost got to go get all these interviews, at least get started, or else you're going to fall behind, because what's going to happen is you're going to have 4 or 5 staffs dumping coaches, and you're going to be competing with everybody else. Right now, you're only competing with the Raiders.
Right. Day late and $1 short. And the worst part is too, like, everybody who's in tune in the league knows all this, sees what's going on. It's like, of course there's going to be somebody that wants to take the job because it's 1 of 32, but you know, those elite level guys you really want to get, they're going to be like, I don't know if that's the right play for me or not to go work in this, you know, day late and $1 short environment.
There will be somebody who turns down an invite to either interview or turns down the job because of Trent Baalke. I am
Divine Azigbo just turned down a freaking game check to not come here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, listen, I'm good, guys. I'm good. You know, this 80K, I can live on this 80K with the practice squad. I'm good. Like, I'm good here. You know, Mark, one of the things that I try and explain to people, just because I've gotten either from friends who have worked in the league and the business, or the small glimpses I've gotten behind the curtain and being involved in whatever the hell I'm involved in, the last 10 years with Bold City and all this stuff. I try and explain to people that, you know, in a lot of ways, the hierarchy and the structure of NFL teams, right? And what I mean by that on the personnel side and the coaching side is that is not that much different than your corporate America, where it's dog eat dog, it's cutthroat. It's in a lot of ways it's worse because there's fewer jobs, right? And everybody who's working not everybody, but a lot of the people who are ambitious working in the personnel department, they all want to be the GM one day, right? That's their dream. And so everything they're doing is working towards that, hopefully attaching themselves with a good group and then working their way up and getting there. And then it's very similar on the coaching side, right? Where that's a lot of the guys who are coaches have that dream of being the head guy, right? And running the show. And so what you end up seeing, and I see this all the time in corporate America, you know, and it's not unique to the NFL, but in some ways the visibility and the publicity behind it makes it very unique. You end up seeing people who, when they get there, they'll do anything. And that's what the Trent Baalkes and, you know, and the just some of the other guys that have been through here, the people who are snakes, you know, you hear that word, he's a snake, you can't trust it. There's leaks, there's this and that. And that's because people are there and they don't want to lose the job. So they will tell Shad what they think he wants to hear. And so like that, I just don't think that enough people understand the dynamics on what goes on in professional sports in general, but really, especially in the NFL. And so, I mean, I appreciate you kind of highlighting that initially with what you said there, because I think I've long been saying that Shad has to be more active, but it doesn't look like that's ever really going to happen. So then the question, and it really is a shame, to your point, that Tom Coughlin wasn't the right hire, because in reality, that type of situation, right, is probably what he needs to go towards. But my worry is this: there aren't many people that I think an owner can fully trust. I mean, you could probably trust Tom Coughlin to a degree from an integrity standpoint, but he was the wrong choice for a litany of other reasons. I mean, there aren't a bunch of what's the guy in Baltimore? This is he's now the EVP of. He was the GM.
Ozzie Newsome.
Excuse me. There's not a bunch of Ozzie Newsomes out there that you can just slide into a role that understand both sides of the game, the coaching side and the personnel side. I hear people say Jim Caldwell could be that guy. I don't know how much Jim Caldwell knows about the personnel side. I guess maybe he'd be a good fit if he was even interested. It sounds like he's interested in the head coaching job, but if he was even interested in a role like that, he'd be a good fit just because he has integrity. And is that almost like, I guess what I'm getting at here is like, do those people exist? And if not, like what the criteria should be for somebody that Shad should be looking for?
Yeah, I mean, I think they do exist. The problem is, people talk about putting Caldwell there. I think Hayes Carline talked about that. That's great, but you got to have somebody there. The problem with Coughlin was you got to have somebody there who doesn't want to coach and doesn't want to make the picks if you're really going to have it and do it right. And it's hard. What do you do an ex-GM and they're going to want to make the picks. You do an ex-head coach and they're going to want to have their hands involved in some of that stuff. The name that gets batted around, and I don't know how you guys feel about this, but Tony Baselli. He's a guy who obviously played in the league 7 or 8 years, whatever it was. And Tony knows the city, knows the team, knows, talent, knows the GM side. He's been a football coach, high school level, but he's done it. So, would somebody like that be, that's what I wonder. Is somebody like that really what we're looking for here? Somebody who knows enough to be dangerous, but isn't trying to take over both roles and really could be kind of that conduit and a focal point, and even really maybe even a face of the franchise to some degree, where everybody's kind of going to him, and it takes a little pressure off maybe the head coach and even the GM.
Do you think Tony? Do you think?
I mean, honestly, it takes some of the pressure off of Shad too.
Sure, no question.
I mean, because one of the criticisms
I think
of Shad
Tony,
is
going
that
back to your point, so I think Tony would jump at it.
But do you think? No, what I was going to say is, do you think Tony is the type of? Do you think Tony is the type of person who could stay hands off enough? Because I feel like he would get the job, and then he'd be like that controlling, micromanaging boss that nobody likes.
Maybe I think it. When you sit here and you watch it, for so long up close like this, you probably have a pretty good insight into what it's going to take, or a vision. And I do think Tony, he would have to know his role, right? Your role is to not get involved and to be a little bit hands off. And I do think somebody like that is what it would probably take.
It's interesting that you bring him up, because like when I look at somebody like a Ozzie Newsome, or even the role kind of Elway without the GM
John
side,
Lynch.
Right? John Lynch, like those guys. Maybe not so much John Lynch because he didn't play for the 49ers. What I was getting at is more so like what I think might give Tony a chance to succeed in something like that is we need someone who understands the organization almost as much as they understand football.
And the city.
Yeah. In the city, the organization, and the part that those two things play together. And I mean, because really what that role should almost be is just like a steward, right? Somebody who's going to keep shit from going off the track.
You're like the owner without being a billionaire.
Yeah.
I mean, in a lot of ways. And so to me, and this is some of this might be my own naivety of as a fan, but like I would want somebody in that position who, like I said, is like a steward and who sees themselves as such, right? Is like, hey, look, my role here is because I care about the organization. I care about the organization and its well-being, and I want to see it be as great as it possibly can be. And I'm going to make Shad pay me a lot of money to do it. But, because that's the danger. I think I don't know that I trust Shad Khan to go find a random person to be the executive vice president. Because I think then all of a sudden you have 3 layers of people who can bullshit them or try to, and 3 layers for dysfunction.
Jimmy Smith is right there begging for a job. You guys don't, what do you guys think about that?
Right now. Stop it. Stop it.
No, but talking about the dysfunction inside the building earlier that Mark was, talking to, This is a direct quote I got. This is just a new low. Nobody wants to keep Baalke. Nobody. People in the building are scratching their heads and are just exasperated at this point. He has to go to right the ship. And that's from people who work in the building. Like, dude, who's trying to do that on the day-to-day, deal with that bullshit?
Let's get into Mark's tweets from last night. Like, I got them right here. Okay. Sure seems like this is a lazy and or cheap solution or just plain backwards. Interviews can start this week and Shad Khan took the easy path, letting Trent Baalke lead the coaching search. Did anyone work to find out who was the leak? The Jaguars kept the guy who told
you connect those two dots a little bit.
the Jaguars kept the guy who told Urban Meyer it was okay to stay behind in Cincinnati and leave the team.
That was one of my favorites.
That was the best. Yeah.
And I'm not convinced Trent Baalke wasn't the one who really wanted to hire Chris Doyle. Let that one sink in.
Hey, I heard about that too. Like back then, that he was a big, like someone who really pushed it to getting done.
Yeah. So everything I've heard said Trent was as much, if not the leader of the Chris Doyle thing.
Jesus.
And, and that should probably, hang around his neck as much as anything he's done is the Chris Doyle thing. And,
especially from a guy like Khan, who's like trying to kind of get into the social justice and all of that. Like,
sure.
Yikes.
Yeah, it was bad. It's bad. It's bad on so many layers. So the Doyle thing was again confirmed to me today that Baalke was the one pushing that train as much as Urban Meyer. And then, until somebody proves me otherwise, I'm going to go down believing that Trent Baalke was a big part of the leaks, if not the leak, but he was a big part of them and allowed them to happen. And, and he's submarined. I'm still convinced. When I think I tweeted about him. I think he's submarined. I don't think, I know he's submarined Urban Meyer, Dave Caldwell, and Doug Marrone to some degree. And he did the same thing in San Francisco.
Right.
It's on record. I mean, like how many coaches is it going to take to line up and say, this guy's bad news for somebody to pay attention or pick up that's what I keep saying. Pick up the phone. If you call, I could give Shad Khan, 5 numbers right now to call him and they would torpedo Trent Baalke for the type of person he is. Forget the kind of work he's done. And the work he's done is questionable.
Isn't even good.
At best, questionable at best.
Yeah. We ain't talking Bill Polian here.
San Francisco went to 3 straight NFC title games. And so that looks good. But most of the guys who built that team, the core of that team, were not Trent guys. They were guys who were there when Trent rolled into town. So, if you really dig in and figure it out, I mean, it's not hard. Pick up the phone. There's a bunch, and you can't, I said this on the radio today, you can't pick up the phone to the 4 or 5 owners, billionaire owners you're tight with, because they don't know either. And guess what? Robert Kraft doesn't want the Jags to succeed. Robert, the Jags have a franchise quarterback. Robert Kraft doesn't want to tell the Jags what GM to go pick. Robert Kraft's probably like, hey, Trent Baalke's your guy.
Yeah, he's
really respected.
Yeah, we've
always been a Baalke fan.
Of course you do.
Yep. I've got a Baalke jersey.
Yeah, you're going to be dysfunctional as long as you keep Baalke. You can't have the Jags in this market figure it out and be the Chiefs or be the Packers, because that's what they could be. I still believe that with Trevor Lawrence and the right draft picks, that's what this franchise can be. Can be a smaller version of Green Bay and Kansas City.
Yeah. All right. So what do we have to change? What do we all have to change our avatars to get somebody to get Tony Baselli, somebody who's going to actually try?
I love it. I love that there's a movement. I don't know what it's going to do anything, but I love that there's a movement to try to get someone's attention, that this isn't just 3 or 4 vocal Jags fans. This is an entire group of money spending season ticket holders, diehard Jag.
Your most hardcore fan.
Yeah, the future of the franchise here that are just irate over your decision to keep a guy everybody in the league knows is bad news.
And guess what? You may not care, but we care. And we're going to tell you, we're going to show you that we care.
Not only do we care, but I can't speak for every nook and cranny of the fan base, but it's a fairly educated fan base the perspective, and I think some of that has to do with the demographic, right? I mean, the younger fan base that we have, demographic wise, is it's at least the subsection that we kind of represent. We've grown up in the information age, and information's out there, so that and that kind of breeds a certain level of savviness, maybe not from an X's and O's standpoint all the time, or knowing what really good looks like or whatever, but it breeds a certain level of savviness that it's hard to bullshit, right? Like, I mean, and I think that's the level we're at now, is frustration wise. Shad once or twice a year gets up in front of the cameras, in front of the microphones, and wants to project this idea of having it figured out, and that we need to trust in what he's doing. But in reality, the results don't back that up. And so when you turn around, Mark, I guess my question for you is this: is it really that bad down there, in the sense that, is there no one to tell him, hey, pick up the phone, or hey, here's what's going on? Because if that's our barometer right now, is like, will he pick up the phone to find out, like, is this person good or bad? Then that should give everyone even less hope. Like, I mean,
yeah, it's Mark Lamping's the guy who has his ear and could say, this is a bad hire, this is a good hire. But from Lamping's standpoint, great on the business side. He's done wonders, business side, London, getting some things rolling like that. He's gonna, Lot J, all, everything around the stadium, he's involved. But in terms of knowing whether Trent, I don't know if Mark Lamping has those connections either, to be able to go and say, hey, this is guys, bad news. Everybody I talk to says this is bad news. And I think Tony Khan would be able to do that. But again, let's be honest about Tony. I like Tony. I texted with Tony last night. I like him as well as anybody. But this is not he is not pushing this sled down the road. This is not his burden. This is not his priority. He's got his hands full. And while he's more than willing to do his part and to help out where he can, he's not making these kind of calls. And I think that's a big thing. Everybody wants to, tweet at Tony Khan like it's Tony's fault. And I think Dilla, did you tweet this today?
Yeah.
That it's not, this is not Tony Khan. So it's, but I do think Tony could do it if he was in the building every single day and he knows enough people around the league. But go look at what Tony has done. I mean, he's unbelievably successful. Just forget AEW and Fulham. You go back and you look, the guy's got 2 or 3 analytics companies that he started from scratch. So, plenty of stuff on his plate to where he can't be the judge and jury on the 7 or 8 guys they're going to interview in the next 10 or 12 days. So, that's why we go back to it. They had the right idea, poor execution, but they got to get that person up there at the top, right under Shad Khan, who's here daily, living in Jacksonville, here from 7 to 7 every single day, living, breathing what's going on the football field, what's going on in the business office, what's going on in the city, what's going on in the meeting rooms, all that stuff, and bring it all together and really just be this unbelievable conduit to know every aspect of the facility and of the organization. Dilla, I mean, we might as well start a grassroots for Dilla to be that guy. I mean, why not? Right?
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Consultant Dillard. Yeah. Definitely.
I love it.
Call me up, Shad.
No, Shad, don't call him. Call Sally and I. We're his agents.
Yeah.
You can talk to us through you can talk to him through us.
Yeah, you start talking numbers with him and he's like, ooh, $24 an hour? Yes.
So I have Shad's number and I've never used it. And I actually was so angry last night that I was this close. Probably if I had been drinking at all, I would have, but I was this close to texting Shad. I was like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Do you think that maybe his plan is to try to recreate that same structure? And, that's the impetus behind the whole,
it doesn't look like it.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's hard to see if that's the plan. It's doing a really poor job of
no, because
showing
and
it.
if that's the plan, then you're doing it completely backwards, completely backwards.
Yeah,
And they're already doing it backwards. But if that was the plan, then it would. There's no chance this would work, because it's just like, before, where you're go hire the head coach and then see if the head coach wants to keep your sitting interim GM. No,
he already did it. He already did it backwards too. Like that's what he did.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Mark, I wanted to ask you, just going back to Tony Khan for a second. Because you have this type of insight, and I don't know how much you want to share or whatever on the record, but going back to maybe the early days of Caldwell, and then especially when Coughlin came in, pre-AEW really taking off, Tony was in the building more. He did seem, from those that we talked to, and even some of us that we talked to that talked directly to Tony quite regularly, he did seem interested in having more of a role, in kind of the vein that we're talking about. Why did that not come about back then?
Yeah, I think there was a little pushback. I don't think Gus Bradley, a little bit old school, he's my age, a little older than me actually. And I think Gus is a little old school, and analytics were pretty foreign to him. And I don't even know how Urban would seem to be a little bit more into it. And certainly, I'm not even sure Doug Marrone was really into the analytics part. And that was Tony's bread and butter. That's really what he brought to the table. What he was interested in was that data-driven analytics part. And so I do think he would have taken on a more role. I just think there was a little pushback of, you walk in the building at, you're a 50-year-old guy who's been in the league for, 30 years. And you're like, the owner's son's being pushed on me for this analytics thing. Do I really want to, and I just think there's a lot of that. And again, Tony, I mean, you think about it, 10 years, Tony just turned 40. So he was 30 years old. Yeah. So, and then if you're 30, but he looks 12, right?
Yeah, that's true.
When he was 30. And so I think there was probably a little bit of pushback from the people in the building. Dave Caldwell really got along well with Tony, but I think from all of those sides, I just think there's a little bit of natural pushback on a guy who's really far ahead of the game. I mean, now you see everybody is going for it on fourth down. They taking the penalties and going, and take the extra point off and going for two, all those things now that you're seeing. I think Tony was ahead of the game a little bit a decade ago.
Well, I think not just that, but even for some of his player evaluation, right? I mean, I know from they basically said, hey, go play over there with the undrafted free agents, that right thing. But some of those guys that he brought in, but even like there's record, not record, I don't think any of us have kept it, but like, I mean, in those early days where Tony would like get frustrated and hop in some of our DMs and say, hey, look, I would have went with this guy. Nobody listens to me. Like, and so, and then looking back on that, this is what I try and tell people, looking back on that, he's more aligned with like what you and I would think would have been a good pick instead of, Dante Fowler or whomever. Right. I mean, like that's, sure. And so, gosh, I don't know. I said this is somebody, I tweeted something very similar to Dilla about, kind of leave Tony alone. Like we're sort of losing the plot here, so on and so forth. And this was a couple of nights ago. And I had a lot of people come to me and say, well, he doesn't care. Shad doesn't care. I'm like, look, there's a difference between not caring and then, just not knowing what the hell to do. And I think at a certain point, Tony started to feel sort of helpless in his role. So he went his other way, started his other thing. And I think what brought this on is I said, if Tony, one day when Tony is in charge, I think we'll be in a better place. Like in that, if that's an indictment of Shad, then so be it. And so many people were like, well, what are you talking about? This and that. It's like, I think there really is a real disconnect. And to your point on people kind of always giving him the shit online, it's because Shad's not online, right? And Tony has a presence online. He's got a Twitter handle. People know they can go there. And so, and that's something that I hate when I tweet something and then somebody says, yeah. And then they basically subtweet in Tony Khan. I'm like, if I want to talk to him, I'd do it myself. Right. Like I would
didn't mind it because I was texting with Tony at the time. So everything that I tweeted last night, Tony knew how I felt about it. So it wasn't like that. Sometimes I'm like, why are you doing that? People used to do it all the time. If I would, if I ever like ripped MJD, like, was a big, he was big on Twitter. If I ever
snitch tagging, we call it snitch tagging.
They would tag MJD. And then all of a sudden I'm getting a dirty look in the locker room where he wants to call me over. So, it's like, it's a little childish from that standpoint. But people were doing it last night. And I was like, hey, feel free, man. I'll like it. I'll just heart it, and move on, because Tony knows how I feel. Tony knows exactly how I feel.
Wouldn't it be awesome if Tony Khan was just like in his role with the Jaguars organization, didn't have all this other side shit, and he was just learning how the whole league works now for that eventual time when he is in charge of it? Wouldn't that just be awesome?
It would be unbelievable.
Imagine.
He'd have a decade in.
Yeah.
And he would know who's the next Sean McVay.
But no, somebody
have his eye on, the next great defensive coordinator out
there.
Somebody
must have told Shad, like, dude, you got to get this dude as far away from the building as possible or whatever. And he's like, it's the complete opposite sense.
I think I've told someone before with Tony, had Shad Khan bought a baseball team, Tony Khan would be some like super highly sought after like GM that would be stuck in Shad Khan's baseball organization. But because football is so late to the analytic game, it didn't matter what Tony wanted to do when he bought the team. So it doesn't matter now because analytics are so late to the NFL. Sure. It's just funny thinking about it, like sports centric, and like think about where he does have his success. It's with Fulham in the championship, where analytics are getting the guys that are getting them at the top of the table to get them back into the Premier League every time. And then they go in and they play, with the money dogs, and they don't last. But in the analytic driven part, they dominate. So it's interesting. I think he's good.
Tony would have been the chubby guy in Moneyball. What's it?
Yeah.
And Tony will hate that reference because Tony is not chunky. So anyway.
Yeah. No, you're good. So it sort of begs the question, Mark, and a lot of the debate that we see on the timeline often, and especially in times like this, is in your opinion, is it a effort thing with Shad? Is it what is it more, effort or willingness to put in the work? Is it that, or is it really just not knowing any better, or is it a combination?
I think it's got to be a combination. I do think he's got a lot going on. I think he's got a lot going on in his world, and the bumper business drives it all. And he doesn't live in Jacksonville. That doesn't help, I think. Having the home in Naples and then the home in Champaign. Now he's here a lot, and I think obviously when that Four Seasons gets built, he'll have a dedicated spot in the Four Seasons and maybe be a little bit closer here. But I think a lot of it is just, you're spread really thin. And so he's spread thin, and it's hard to kind of keep a close eye from 30,000 feet. And that's the reality of where he is he's 30,000 feet away. And, for him to be able to keep his finger on the pulse is impossible. It's an impossible ask. And if we want to be truly honest here, do we want Jerry Jones? Does anybody want Jerry Jones as their owner? A guy meddling, a guy who thinks he can make the picks, a guy who's making the picks, a guy who, it's like Shad talked about roster control and everybody flipped out. And, he's never going to have roster control. He just wants to be in the decision-making process of who they're keeping and who they're not. He's the perfect owner. He really is a guy who will do anything for you within reason. Go to bat for the city, go to bat for the organization, open his wallet, do all these things, and then still be be hands off. But when you don't have the right people, when you haven't hired the right people under you, it's just a recipe for disaster, especially when those two guys, I talk about all the time, when those two guys turn on each other, that GM and that head coach, and with no supervision, they turn on each other because they don't have anybody breathing down their neck.
It's funny how you bring up the Jerry Jones side of it, because that's people who kind of come to Shad's defense often go to that, right? Like, hey, he's not Jerry Jones. He's not going to be, meddling with everything and this and that. And my response to that usually is like, I don't want Jerry Jones. I don't want Daniel Snyder. Like, right. Don't be silly. Right. I mean, I think in my head, a perfect situation is, and I get it, the Steelers are different, but the Rooneys are there sort of to set the tone. right? And to kind of ensure that the culture is what it should be and what they should believe it should be. Sort of teams like that. I think that's where, and I think you need that here in a smaller market, especially when it comes to it trickles down to player satisfaction as well. I think many players have felt very disconnected in his 10 years here versus, the players knew Wayne Weaver and Dolores Weaver cared.
Sure.
Right. And I have friends who are former players who I talk to all the time. And up until maybe a year or so ago, year and a half, 2 years ago, like the outreach from ownership of any kind to former players and the NFL alumni and everything was putrid, right? You look at things like the Raider way, and we don't want to compare ourselves to Mark Davis and the Raiders necessarily, but everybody who played for the Raiders, other than Jamarcus Russell, just about like is proud to be a Raider. And
Sure.
I think those are things Shad can control. He doesn't need to be the guy making picks. He doesn't even necessarily need to be the guy who's constantly meeting with the media and being the voice of the franchise. But behind the scenes, that's what I'm kind of begging for, is make being a Jaguar and being a Jaguar fan, make that mean something.
Well, you
And-
got to keep guys. That's the
Right.
How that you giving guys second contracts, making the right picks in the first round. The guys who are heroes from day one, right, are put on a pedestal from day one. If you're not keeping those guys, it's hard to really build that.
Dude,
And
Cam
that-
Robinson is the perfect example right now. People are like, "Oh, we got to get rid of Cam Robinson." Why? Give him the.
Yeah, no,
He needs to
played
stay.
his best year.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got a lot bigger problems on that offensive line than Cam Robinson.
Yeah.
I would tag him again and
Pay him whatever, dude. Like,
Yeah.
fuck?
sign him.
Yeah.
Sign him
The
to a
whole
long-
right side of the line, even the three. I mean, Shatley's your most consistent offensive lineman over the last 3 years. You got a problem.
right.
Yeah.
So, I guess putting a bow on the Baalke stuff, Mark, what was the dynamic ever supposed to be with him and Urban? Like, what was it from the beginning? Does anybody really know? Like,
Well, it changed, right? I'll go to my grave thinking that Baalke changed it. And listen, kudos to Baalke. Let's admit it. Let's be completely honest.
it's
He
Hunger
won.
Games. He's winning.
He
Yeah.
won. He won.
Yeah.
He has the
He
worst
came in
resume.
here-
Any of those four of Urban, him, Dave
Caldwell,
Caldwell, and Doug
mhm.
Marone. He has the worst resume, and he's the last one standing.
It's
Hey,
it's
Mark, I told
Survivor,
them.
and he
I'd
made
been
the fire.
telling them
He
about-
won.
Yeah.
And
I'd-
so credit to him that, and I think one of those Raiders or one of the 49ers beat writers said way back when, months ago, a month and a half ago, said, you watch, the one who's going to survive all this will be Trent Baalke. And he did. And
Yeah.
so to his credit, whatever he's got some sort of charisma that allows people to believe him or him to talk he's got silver tongue, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it's unbelievable.
That dinosaur
he
talk
won.
wouldn't work on me.
But the original formation was going to be coach centric model. Urban has final say, and then I don't know if Baalke weaseled his way in to make some of these calls, or Urban. What I really believe is Urban just didn't feel comfortable. He got here and he's like, "Oh shit, I don't know shit about this league. I've told everybody I studied it for a year. It was complete and utter bullshit."
Yeah.
And I got no fucking clue what I'm doing. I
Yeah.
don't know how to hire. I don't know how these players are going to react. And then it was, really interesting that he leaves and all of a sudden it's the players have changed. That's, give me a fucking break with
Yeah.
that bullshit. The players haven't changed. These guys are getting paid. And if you didn't walk in the door understanding that these guys are punching a time clock and making money, and they've got their families, and they got, girls, they got all these other interests, to not be here at the facility for 15 hours a day. This isn't college football where these guys have nothing else to do and they're sitting around the pool table all night, shooting the shit. And this is not the way it works in the NFL. And so if he didn't know that, then he was completely flawed coming in. But to me, somehow either that's what I think happened, that Urban just was overwhelmed with it, and Baalke saw an opportunity here to slide in and grab a little bit more power. And he did. And kudos to him. because, you know, he won the game. He's the last man standing.
Oh, 100% on board with them.
When did the information start changing for you though, Mark? Because right when or during free agency, at the end of free agency, is when the like narrative of the stuff I was hearing flipped. It went from Urban's the final yes man to Baalke's actually controlling all of this. It seemed at the end of free agency to me, that was like the first time I felt like, all right, maybe Baalke is in control. Maybe Baalke isn't the yes man, the fall man that everyone had portrayed he might be early on. Because of the stuff I was hearing, it seemed like you said, Urban wasn't comfortable. He pushed it onto Baalke, and at that moment, Baalke was like, all right, I'm running with this. And it seemed like it all flipped at that point.
All of free agency, really, I don't even know about just the end of it. I just felt like all of free agency was Trent's show, because it was the whole value. We're going to do value guys. Yeah. And that was from day one. I mean, they didn't do anything on day one, right? And we're like, what are they doing? And then all of a sudden they're signing Jamal Agnew and Rudy Ford, and you're going, what is this? And then you start digging in, and it's like, oh wait, this is Trent. This is Trent. Trent likes he likes big guys. He likes injured guys. You can get, you know, a little bit lower. It's a, you know, Gene Smithism, right? Or, you know, Gene Smith to go get a guy from a small college, and he's getting big guys, and he's getting guys who have been injured, and he's getting guys that you can get at a discount. And it's like, this isn't your money. You don't get to pocket the money you're saving. What are you doing? Spend the money. It's not yours. Go spend it. And so that, to me, that was a big one. Free agency to me was, this is not Urban's show. Urban had no clue what he was doing in free agency. And because we thought, you know, I think we ran with, I think even you, Dilla, ran with a list of, here are all the guys, somebody had done the work, and maybe Dilla had retweeted it. Here are all the former guys who have played for Urban or Ohio State who are going to be available in free agency. And they ended up with one of them, right? With just with Carlos Hyde.
Carlos Hyde, the worst fucking one.
Yeah, the worst one. The guy literally wouldn't go in a game here in Jacksonville the last time he was here because he didn't want to go in. He's like, I'm not going in. Yeah. So, you know, I'm not going in a blowout. I'm too good.
Yeah, sign him again. Fuck it.
What are you doing? Let's sign him up, and he's going to be our number one.
Yeah,
you know,
and we're going to try to start him.
It's ridiculous. So that was to me, but I even go back to the Doyle thing, and you know, this one always just kind of struck me as weird. Yeah. When they fired Doyle, they put Urban and Shad's name, and then the next day they added Baalke. Yeah. And I'm like, why are they adding Baalke? So I never could figure that out. And I still now, knowing that Baalke really was the guy who hired him, I'm starting to wonder if that was because somebody said, hey, we got to put Trent. Did either two things happen? Either Trent felt left out, that he wasn't in on it, or B, they said, oh shit, this is Trent's guy, and he's got no blood on his hands because his name's not on the statement. So we got to get Trent's name on the statement. It's one of those two. One day I'd love to figure it out, and we will. But you know, that to me. But I just really believe that Urban just was way in over his head, had no idea what he was getting into, and then started leaning on first Trent, and then he started leaning on Schottenheimer, Bevel, and Joe Cullen to the point where he was completely hands off, and you know, he
didn't
might
know
as
who
well
the fuck was in the game.
Yeah, I mean, from the way I understood,
I love Roy Roberts personally. I'm glad Roy Roberts was in a lot.
No, but from the way I understood it, though, there was almost like two head coaches, and the fact that Charlie Strong really worried about the defense and reported back to Urban. Urban had no say in it. And when you sit back and you look at how everything has worked, the only successful group on the team for maybe a game or two at a time is the defense. So I always thought that was the funniest thing about Urban Meyer. He has no say in the defense, and that's your only bit of success on the team.
But did you notice that he went out of his way to start taking credit for the defense when the defense started playing well? So all of a sudden, oh yeah, we went from a man scheme to a zone scheme. I had a lot of say in that. You know, come on.
Yeah, shut the fuck up, Urban.
So, do we want to talk about coaching candidates to wrap it up? Should we even touch on that? Do we care about that?
Well, I kind of just wanted to. Yes, I mean we can touch on that maybe briefly, but I also did want to get, you know, Mark goes on the radio from time to time, so people get to hear sort of those side of the opinions. We appreciate you being candid with us tonight, Mark. I also want to just, again, a little bit of Jaguars Twitter talk. Get Mark's take on that, because he is, for better or worse, sometimes caught in the crossfire or entrenched in it, depending on how you look at it. So we can run through coaching candidates first.
Have you had?
Yeah,
any,
I'm either loved or hated. Now I'm loved right now.
Have you had any snakes around the house lately, Mark?
Dude, I learned my lesson there. The snake police you'd have thought I had, child porn or something. It was unbelievable the way they came after me. It was unbelievable. I don't touch snakes.
Just look at their lips first. Get really close and look at the lips.
Kill the snake. Yeah, get close enough. Do not let anybody know you killed a snake. So
present no evidence. Leave no traces behind.
But as I told you guys before, Jags Twitter is amazing, but it's like it's never good. You're never good enough. Maybe Dilla's good enough. I don't know. But like for me, it's like
some people.
either I'm way too soft on them, or it's like, what the hell are you asking that for? Give the guy some personal space. And I told you guys, it's like Urban. So if I asked Urban about Billy Napier, it was like, why are you asking about the Gators? I just want to know if he knew Billy Napier, ever come across him. But I got crushed for that. And then I asked, Urban goes through his whole thing, and obviously it was a big deal. I asked him about his relationship with his wife, whether they were going to survive. And you would have thought I just asked him if he had anal that night back at the bar. It was like unbelievable. It was like, people were like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Let the man live. I'm like, what do you got me? So it's unbelievable.
It's the internet, man. It's such a wild place. It really is. Like we explain to Sally sometimes. Sally has managed to stay more low key on Twitter than I
Smart
think.
Man.
This whole fucking clown thing. Stop giving me credit for that. I didn't fucking do that.
Oh, is that yours? Is that yours?
Yeah, it's him. Yeah, Solly did it.
Yep.
But see, you don't know that, Mark. See, that's the.
Well, I think did I see is Smitter is Dilla's boy Smitter? He's all in on the clown thing now, right?
Is he? Oh, me and Smitter might be boys.
I think Smitter approves. It's a Smitter approved. Yeah.
I'm gonna go hang out with the TU boys while you guys.
There's that.
Yeah, go hang out with them. So you'll appreciate this, Mark. Smitter has had me blocked on Twitter for a couple of years now. But here's the that's not, he's in an esteemed club there with like Adam Schefter and Mike Florio.
Schefter blocked you?
He blocked a lot of us. It was really weak. He blocked a ton of.
We had somebody make a bot that just copies all of Schefter's tweets so that we can see them.
Yeah. But no, he blocked a bunch of us back. Like when, what was it? Like the Tebow. Jaguars facts.
Tebow.
Oh
yeah. He blocked us with the Tebow. They said the Tebow was a virtual certainty. And we started, I called him Frodo or something like that. And he blocked me for that.
Yeah. I didn't even do anything that egregious. I think I just hit him with like a hashtag that wasn't even, it was nowhere near that bad. But anyway, Smith's got me blocked. But the funniest thing is, some of the other folks at the TU have my contact information, right? Whether it be Nate or Chris Hong or any of those guys and
non-sports writers.
Well, some of the old sports writers did, like O'Halloran and those guys, they had my information. So every once in a while I will get a voicemail from Gary Smith asking me to comment on something. Hey, I just want to get the fan perspective on this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, bro, you got me blocked on Twitter. Why are you calling me? So I actually have told I think we had Nate Monroe on the podcast a while back, and I think I told him, I'm like, hey, can you tell Smitter to stop texting and leave me voicemails if he's going to have me blocked on Twitter? Like that's the most. I'm like, what is that about? But yeah, so what is? Here's one for you then along those lines. Your favorite person that you've ever covered the Jaguars with in the 18 years?
You guys got to know this. This is like a thing. Nobody. There's a
I'm trying to think.
It's Mercedes Lewis, and it's not even close. And,
yes.
And I text with him almost daily. In fact, he's on my list to text tonight because he got COVID. Right? He ended up on the COVID list today. So he's by far my guy. And he has been since day one. And his 12 years here, he was amazing, great source of information and sorely missed. And I hope Nate Hackett and Mercedes Lewis come back next season. I mean, I would take both of them right now in a heartbeat.
What is it? You know, I guess, has he
He's
offered any?
He's just a real. Here's what I think. So in my business, I judge people based on when I no longer need them and they no longer need me. So like right now, perfect example. Urban Meyer texted me. And I haven't talked to him in 9 months. He texted me at 7:18 the day after he got fired. That Thursday morning, 7:18 a.m. Call me. And so I called him. We talked, whatever. I can't get into some of that stuff there, but that's how you judge people, is, to me, when you don't need them. Now, the problem with that is I never heard from Urban Meyer. I haven't heard from him since. And I didn't hear from him in the 8 years that he was at Ohio State. Now, so to me, I judge the people who no longer need me and that I no longer need, and that's Mercedes Lewis. We've had a relationship since he left Jacksonville, and it's not, he doesn't need me, I don't need him. And that's where you judge how real is the person. I can call Gus Bradley right now and he'll answer the phone.
Gus Bradley's a real dude. Yeah.
I'll call Dave Caldwell right now and he'll answer the phone. But if I call Doug Marrone, I get crickets. Doug Marrone, and I texted Doug the day he was fired and said, hey, I hope you're doing well. Hang in there. Haven't heard from him. And so, like, that's where you judge people, to me, is when they no longer need you. Are you of any use to them? And if they turn you off and shut you down and never want anything else to do with you, then they weren't real. And
right.
So that's kind of where I go with it. Will Muschamp, a Florida guy. Everybody dumps on Will Muschamp, but one of the most genuine, great guys I've ever known. And still to this day, if I call Will Muschamp right now, he would pick up the phone. And so, or text me back or something. And so that's, and I'm not saying I need him. I'm just saying, like, they're real. They're human
because I mean, I think what you're getting at is a big part of your job is formulating relationships, right? And so
all of it, every bit of it.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, if, when rubber hits the road and people are gone or those relationships change a little bit. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, that's how you, I mean, that's life, right? I mean, that's life stuff. That's
everybody's job is that to a degree.
I mean, you bring up Mercedes and that you're still in contact with them. You even brought up that you hope they're back here. I mean, that sort of begs the question in my perspective, what are his thoughts on what's been going on here the last few years?
Complete shit show. I mean, you guys brought up Ryan O'Halloran, and Ryan gets to I don't travel a lot. I went to Tennessee just at a rarity. AP just doesn't work that way. We have people in every city and they handle the game. But like Ryan O'Halloran travels a lot, and Ryan will tell you stories all day about he runs into people and it's like, what the hell's going on in Jacksonville? What the hell's going on? It's a complete shit show. And so, you talk to people, and that's the same thing. It's like, it's still like Shad Khan hates the word of being a laughingstock. Well, that's what you are right now. You're a laughingstock because of the decisions you've made, because of Urban Meyer, because of the things that have gone on here. And that's the first step to getting back to some sense of normalcy and becoming a consistent winner, is stop being a laughingstock and get rid of all the drama. And so I don't know how you do that with Trent Baalke in the building.
I mean, that's like, that quite literally is the baseline, right? I mean, you can't talk about being serious about rebuilding this and picking up the pieces and putting it back together with him still here, right? Like, I mean, that in my head, there's no way around that. And I think that's what's kind of given tons of life to this whole little clown emoji movement that I didn't think was real when Solly tweeted it last night, but now all of a sudden it's like a massive thing. And that's what it's funny. We were talking about before you hopped on, Mark, like a lot of people are legitimate. There's not a lot. There's some that are legitimately like upset with us because we're doing this. And it's like, because we had a couple guys say, hey, well, when Shad and Tony decided to pick up and move the team, I hope you guys enjoy your clown emojis. And it's like, look, I mean, at the end of the day, this is peanuts compared to what people experience in other markets. I mean, this is us just as much laughing at ourselves
Goofing off,
as it is us poking fun at him or, be in any way, remotely disrespectful. Like, so it's hilarious. I sometimes I wish, like, if Dilla, you brought up Fulham, if they had as poor of a track record here as they've had, and they had it at Fulham, like the amount of insane vitriol that they would experience. In fact, I think for the product that they've put on the field, 100 losses and counting, right? Like, it's been pretty tame here. People have been pretty understanding.
They printed 16-foot banners to put in the soccer stadium to call Tony a dog fucker. Like, they go crazy over there, man. Like,
it is. People don't understand that. Like, it's like what we're doing is tame.
Nothing.
Like,
I mean, they would have been relegated by now. They would have been relegated to the Arena Bowl.
Yeah.
Like the Arena League. They would be like USFL, XFL, Arena League.
SEC.
They'd be playing UCF in the Gasparilla Bowl.
Yeah.
Seriously. Yeah, it's I don't know.
It's bad. It's bad.
So we want to touch on coaches.
And again, as I said about Shad, at some point, and I love Shad Khan, you got to look in the mirror and go, where's the common denominator? It wasn't good in 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. It wasn't good all those years. And now it hasn't been good the last, the last 4. And at some point you go, maybe it's me. Maybe I need to get somebody in here who's going to help me fix it. Maybe I don't have all the answers. And I don't think that makes you less of an owner or less of a man.
Hell no.
Or any, I mean, he's still the smartest guy in the room, in most rooms, right?
And the richest.
Okay. Yeah, for sure, the richest. But it's okay to say, hey, you know what? I need some help here. And that's where I think that's where we're at. And it doesn't look like it's happening this time. So maybe it'll happen when we, rinse and repeat next year or 2 years from now, whatever it is.
That's where I've been hypercritical of him, Mark, like publicly from any platform that I guess I do or don't have. It's just been in that sense of like, okay, a lot of his commentary can be critical, and rightfully so, sometimes critical of us as a city and as a market. So at a certain point, it's okay for us as a fan base to vocalize similar thoughts on his performance, right? And
sure.
At the end of the day, when there's been a lot of people, players, coaches, personnel guys have come and gone in 10 years, he is the common denominator. He is the one making those hires. People tell me all the time, like, you're too hard on Shad Khan because, he invests in the team. Just also, I'm like, I get it, guys. I'm one of the first people to acknowledge all of those things, but I'm also going to call a spade, right? And he is the common denominator. I can't make the hire. He hasn't asked me about it. He hasn't put up a Twitter poll, right? Like, right. I mean, like, I can't do it. So at the end of the day, and we're beholden to his decision-making. Like, that is what it is. So speaking of, Solly really wants to, he's brought it up a couple of times. He really wants to run through a couple coaching candidates before we let you go, officially put the kids to bed. Solly, go ahead.
All right. Byron Leftwich, Todd Bowles, Matt Eberflus, Nate Hackett, Dan Quinn, Kellen Moore, Jim Caldwell, and Doug Peterson. Which of these men is going to be smart enough to say, keep me the fuck out of Jacksonville?
Oh, gosh. Wow. That one's a tougher one. Now, I do think Caldwell and Peterson being out of work, how many people are beating down their door for the job? How many people were beating down their door last year for the job?
Most people in the league are going the young up and comer OC type.
Correct.
So.
Kellen Moore, to me, is the one who, and even Nate Hackett, both those guys could say no, and they'll have 5 other offers by the end of the season. Right. But they're also the ones who don't have head coaching experience. So, Nate Hackett's been here in Jacksonville, obviously knows what he's getting into with Shad Khan, Tony Khan, all those things. So I think to me, I'd put him at near the top of the list. A young quarterback, he was good here, in a little bit, but there was promise, and he's come a long way. Yeah, but one of those guys, I don't know which one, but one of them will say no thanks because of the setup, because of Trent Baalke. Now, whether that's Peterson and Caldwell, I wouldn't put them high on the list to say no, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's Dan Quinn or Kellen Moore or Nate Hackett to go, no.
What about Byron? What about Byron?
These guys, I think Byron's desperate.
Really?
And he knows Jacksonville. I think he knows Florida. He's going to probably want to come be a head coach in Jacksonville. Take that next step, get out of Arians and Brady's shadow. So I don't think Leftwich is a guy who's going to be turning stuff down. So I would think he would take it, whether it's you, me, or anybody on this podcast being the GM. I think he'd be all in.
You, Mark Long, covered the league for 18 years. What is the criteria for the next coach if you're choosing?
Well, I think when you're coming off the debacle that you had, you don't have a choice. You got to go get somebody with head coaching experience, or at least NFL experience. I'd be okay with Kellen Moore. You could sell Kellen Moore. I think you could sell Nate Hackett without any NFL coaching experience. Obviously, when you look at their list, they're going after somebody with NFL experience, one, and then most of them have head coaching experience. So that to me is the big thing. They're not gonna go down the road of a college coach again. And so it'd be interesting. They tried it with Urban Meyer, failed miserably. They tried the hot defensive coordinator with Gus Bradley, failed miserably. So I would be surprised if they went those routes. I really do believe, unless it's Kellen or Nate Hackett, that it'll be one of those guys with head coach. I'll take Dan Quinn. I covered him at Florida. He'd be a good guy. I don't know that a defensive guy is where I would go, because unless you can get him, as the offensive, with a good offensive coordinator, but I would go offense with a guy and let them pair somebody who can really, really roll with Trevor here and make the offense, at least real. Yeah, I'm trying to use, what's the right word?
Score double digits.
Score to 9 points.
Throw a touchdown pass every 3 games.
Exactly. Not go 8 weeks between touchdown passes or whatever.
Bar is quite low at the moment.
It really is. It really is. But it's 1 of 32, and it's going to pay. What's the number going to pay now? Is it going to pay 10 million based on what's happening in college? So somebody will take it, regardless of Trent Baalke.
Yeah.
Call me and Solly. We're in. Shot. I'll do it for 5. I'll do it for 5 million. and I'll stay. And you can put in my contract. I'll stay past at least 5 p.m. every day. Unlike Urban, I will stay.
Dude, how much was Urban making?
Oh, I don't know. You know better than me. Dylan would know.
8.5.
More than that, right? Lower than that, really?
Got him, lowballed him. It was good. Yeah, they had him 6.
No wonder he didn't give a fuck.
So that's what when he was making 6, that's what he thought he could be gone every day by 6.
It was pretty incentive laden, I think, from what I understand. It was incentive laden. It could have got up to like 6 a year. But that's a bargain for Urban Meyer.
It's shrewd by Khan too. It hedges his bet a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it also showed you how much Urban wanted to get back in it, right? That it wasn't about the money. It was really about, for him, it was getting back in it.
And it flopped.
That flopped incredibly. Well, fellas, anything else?
You guys have anything else?
Who's your number one if you had to rank them? Just your number one of the 8.
Go ahead, guys.
I would rather just go the boring. I want Caldwell. I
think Caldwell.
I just look at what Caldwell did with quarterbacks, and he was successful with Peyton Manning. Obviously, he was successful with Joe Flacco during his very successful run, and Stafford in Detroit, and he won in Detroit.
Yeah,
I would kill for 9 and 7 for 10 years,
and that's what he was, right?
Yeah.
Well, somebody tweeted the other day. You can go look at this, Mark. It's hilarious. As a Jag fan, basically said, this was Jim Caldwell's record against winning teams or against playoff teams.
Winning teams, 5 and 23.
It was 5 and 23.
Oh, I did see that.
But then like our response was, yeah, well, he's 31-3 against non-winning teams. We'll take that every damn day of the week. Like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I would kill.
Like when you've lost 15 in a row to Houston or whatever it is. Is it whatever it is? However many in a row to Houston. Yeah.
Bring me 7-10 for 3 years, Mark, and I'll build you a statue. 7-10.
Yeah.
Dan Quinn is interesting because I like Dan Quinn, but I don't want to do anything with his scheme.
You would end up going back to the Gus Bradley.
That's why I don't want him. I think he's a good coach, but on defense, I don't want anything to do with that.
You don't want that cover 3 shit.
I think Kellen Moore would be fun too. I'm kind of in that same boat with you. If they went with a coach who hadn't coached before, that's my guy.
Yeah, I really just don't know if he's willing to do that. But if he is, to me, Kellen Moore would be the guy of that group. Though listen, I'm a Hackett guy. I think Hackett. The problem with both of them is like how much are they where's the trueness of, are they disguised or how good they are is being propped up by, with Leftwich? Is it propped up by being with Brady? For Nate Hackett, is it propped up by being with Aaron Rodgers? I mean, though, Hackett had a pretty good year with Blake Bortles.
There's a lot. Yeah. And so you can point to that for Hackett, but so for a lot of the people that are the names that are being tossed about, you can do that with most of them, right? And whether it's the player, right? Whether it's like a transcendent player like Rodgers or Brady, I'd even argue on Leftwich's side. I mean, he's learned a ton from Brady, I'm sure, and also Arians, but we've never seen him without either one of them, right? Like I know what Bruce Arians is bringing. Right. I don't know what Leftwich is bringing on his own.
Correct. Yeah.
Kellen Moore has some, has an interesting background, and he's really, we had Mike Tice's son was on the pod a while back, and he was kind of schooling us to the system that Moore runs, which is really Linehan's system, right? Okay. And so it's not even so much McCarthy's system; it's more Linehan's system. So that kind of intrigues me a little bit because at least it's not, he's not tied directly to McCarthy. But there's a lot of that out there with each one of these guys. That's why, and Peterson scares me in some ways because I wonder how much success did Doug Peterson have without Frank Reich? Because Frank Reich has proven to be a badass. Like I would take him in a second. You can kind of poke holes. That's why I kind of keep coming back to what I think might just be the safest play, and that is Caldwell. In that sense, I mean, he's done it a few different places. He's produced something in Detroit, and there are still players every day for the past week that are out that played for him or that, know somebody who played for him that are like Jim Caldwell and that within itself may be enough to win me over to like, okay, maybe that will change the culture a little bit. And I almost think that's what we need more than anything. I don't know.
We want to be a 500 team so bad.
It's like we would
500 take 400.
If we went to the stadium and there was a chance we might win every game.
Oh yeah.
Forget about.
I saw it. Knowing. Yeah. I saw that Panthers fan today commenting on something like, "Oh, this clown emoji is great. We need to do this with Tepper." And I'm just like, you guys don't even know our pain. Get out of here. Like, I don't even want to hear it. This is almost historic ineptitude. Yeah, no, I mean, it's sad, but it's true, Mark. I think if whoever comes in, that bar is so, and that's the incredible thing, right? Is that to me, that's the part about the last 10 years that just blows my mind. The NFL this year literally created an entire additional playoff team. And yet almost every team in the league, bar like 4 of them or 5 of them, are in some sort of running right now with only a couple of games to play, have some shred of hope. And we're not even anywhere. We're not even playing the same league as those other teams. And that's the part that just drives most of us nuts. And I don't know. I think, listen, man, you have seen it all right there with us for the last 18 years. So,
yeah, and like people say, rooting interest, all that stuff. It is so much better to cover a team that's just functional, and it's better relationships. You're not hammering the coaches every single day. everything is better. You walk down the hall and, people are excited. It's all of that. And like, that's the thing. Everybody in this city wants this team to succeed, or should want this team to succeed. It's better for everybody on every level, for businesses, for newspapers, for podcasts, for, radio. It's always better if you're not the shit show. And they've just been the shit show for far too long right now. And that would be my thing. That's why I keep going back to burn it down. I'm a burn it down guy right now, because if I was Shad Khan and I'd seen it like this the last few years, I would blow it up and just go start over, just from ground up. So one thing he hasn't really done.
And there's track record of teams in his own division that have done it, that have seen pretty good success rather quickly. Yeah. I mean, even I equate it to this, Mark. Jim Irsay somehow figures out how to do this, right? Like, and I mean, most days he's not even lucid enough online to like fire off a couple tweets. And so at a certain point, like, the burn it down strategy maybe you just got to deploy it every now and then. I don't know.
Cincinnati figured it out. Cleveland figured it out. Jacksonville will figure it out at some point.
Let us pray. Let us pray. Let us pray. Well, thank you, Mark.
Thanks for having me.
We were gonna have you tell lots of Vito stories, but maybe that's for another time.
That's a good. I got some good ones. I got some really good Vito stories.
We should do a whole Vito. We should do a whole Vito pod where we get everybody to do that. That would be incredible.
Steve Wrigley and Vito went toe to toe. No, Steve Wrigley and Gene went toe to toe one day, and Vito went toe to toe with. Well, I should say Jack went toe to toe with Vito, and. And then, Vito's whole porn thing. Yeah, it's good stuff. There's a whole Vito podcast to be done for sure.
Two things left for you. One, you have to, we need an answer. Who wins in a fist fight between Gene and Vito?
Oh, wow.
Vito's got the reach.
Vito does have the reach. Gene, I think Gene's probably sneaky strong.
Yeah,
I can see that. He's got
strength, and now I think Vito, maybe 20 years ago, I might have bet on Vito. Not now.
Yeah.
Vito's really.
He plays a lot of tennis. My man's fit, playing tennis all the time. All right, and then
Gene has that like dumb like retard strength.
He said the R word.
Your words.
Oh my gosh!
It's at the end. This is like an hour in. Nobody's gonna see that.
Can we bleep that?
Yeah, we'll bleep
probably. Well, yeah. Again, Mark, thank you so much, man. We really, really enjoyed it. You were the perfect person to bring on with this. I think the thing we appreciate most about you is we can feel your suffering right along with us at times with the ineptitude.
I want them to get it right. And, I'll write either way. I'm going to write about it either way, whether they get it right, whether they get it wrong. Yeah. I'm writing about it either way, but it'll be a lot better, easier to write if it's fun and winning and everybody's happy.
What a fun change up that would be.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Well, hey, listen, we close every episode with this. It's we've got a good pal of ours, JB, and it's just kind of become tradition. You can join us or not. It can be sort of awkward for new people, but we just sign off with love you, JB. That's it.
Love you, JB.
Boom.
Love you, JB.
Thanks, dude. That was awesome.
No, thanks for having me. Who's JB?
Just one of our homies.
Yeah, just one of like it was when we first started doing this, it was way before we thought a lot of people would actually listen to it. And that's sort of blown our mind. Still sort of does. People give us money, Mark, to do this. I don't know why or how. But JB's just one of our good pals who from day one was always listening. So it's kind of become a inside joke.
No, there's nothing better. Like you're walking around the stadium or you're in the stadium on game day and someone's just like, love you, JB, when they see you. So it's good stuff.
You guys all sit together?
Yeah. We're in the north end zone.
North end zone?
North end zone. Yeah. I dragged these guys over there a few years back. We actually met right when we were kicking off all the Bold City stuff. I planned a couple of trips up to the draft and it was the year. So I've seen Justin Blackmon be drafted at Radio City Music Hall. Luke Jokel, which is when we all met.
Yeah.
And then we were all there for Bortles as well, which he has the distinction of being the favorite by far of the three that we witnessed in person.
Oh yeah, he would be like, if you talk about favorite players, he's in the top 5, maybe even 2 behind Marseille. I texted him the other day about when the Saints signed him.
Yeah.
So he's great. He's fantastic.
He should have been playing, man.
I actually, after the way that game started, I was like, oh shit, he's gonna be in at halftime. You know? So
he's a good dude, man. He always really embraced like everything we did, and he just I've we had some mutual friends, and him and I had a few run-ins, and I was just like, man, this guy's more like he could be my brother. Like he could be my younger brother. Like
no doubt.
Like he fits so much. Had he been what Dave Caldwell thought he could have been,
we would have a statue built for him already.
Oh yeah.
With him eating a taco with a Bud Light next to him.
That's it.
So, hey, we're not. Are we still taping?
No.
So Urban,
we are still recording, but we can cut it.
Oh well, end the recording.
Just cut it now.
Yeah.
Chop it.
I got to edit it because we didn't do any ads.
Oh, okay.
So Urban,
shit. Hang on.
He's like, I don't want to get you in trouble.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't want the unedited version out there.
I don't know how to stop the recording. Oh, wait, here we go.